If I had to start sim racing again today in 2026 from absolute zero, I would make very different choices from the ones I made back then. And not because I knew less at the time, but because the market has completely changed. Today, you can get really good equipment without blowing your budget, as long as you don't make the wrong decisions at the start. And that's exactly what I want to help you avoid. Quick side note before we start. The links to the gear I mentioned are in the description. It helps support the channel. If you use them, I get a small commission at no extra cost to you, and I always make sure those links are kept up to date. If I'm starting today, the first thing I always keep in mind is a simple rule. Gear alone will not make you faster. What really makes a difference is time on track, consistency, and understanding what the car is doing. Good equipment mainly helps you be more comfortable and more consistent, and that matters a lot. Before even talking about specific models, the very first thing I look at is context. Are you playing on a desk or on a cockpit? PC only or console as well? Are you just curious about sim racing, or do you already know you're going to spend a lot of time with it? Because those answers completely change what makes sense to buy. If I'm starting on a desk without a cockpit, I'm definitely not chasing 15 Newton meters of torque. That makes no sense. What I want is something stable, easy to install, and easy to live with. Something I can use without fighting my setup every time I want to drive. And in that case, entry-level direct drive bundles make a lot of sense today. If I'm looking for the best balance between simplicity and driving feel, I'm clearly looking at bundles from brands like Moza or Fanatec. A Moza R3 or R5, for example, is exactly the kind of product I would have loved to have when I first started. You put it on your desk, plug it in, and it just works. The force feedback is clean, precise, not aggressive, but already more than enough to properly learn how to drive. Fanatec with the CSLDD is also a very solid option. Even at 5 Newton meters, it's already very convincing for learning, especially on a desk or a simple setup, with force feedback that's clean and easy to read. And more importantly, this base has a huge advantage. It doesn't lock you in. You can start simple and evolve your setup over time without having to replace everything. That's exactly the kind of smart choice that helps you avoid wanting to change your gear every 6 months. If you're on console, especially PlayStation with Gran Turismo, the choices are a bit more limited, and honestly, in that specific case, the Thrustmaster T598 makes a lot of sense, especially if you want something simple, compatible, and ready to drive. It's not my favorite wheelbase in terms of pure driving feel. The pedals are okay, but nothing special. The wheel itself is fairly basic, but the overall package works. You get PlayStation compatibility, direct drive, something reliable, and most importantly, you can just drive without thinking about it. Now, if I know I'm going to invest myself a bit more and drive regularly, that's when I start thinking more long-term. Not necessarily more expensive, but more scalable. And in that case, staying within the Fanatec ecosystem makes a lot of sense. You can keep the same base, upgrade your pedals, change wheels, fine-tune your setup over time, without ever feeling like you're starting from scratch again. That's exactly what I recommend when you know sim racing isn't just a short-term thing. And that brings us to pedals. If I could fix one mistake I made when I started, it would be this. I would have invested in good pedals much earlier. Even with an average wheelbase, good pedals make a massive difference. And today, there are some incredible options for the price. The Fanatec CSL Elite V2 pedals, for example, are still a reference. They're consistent, precise, and you can keep them for years, even as the rest of your setup evolves. Then there's the support, and this is something a lot of people underestimate. Mounting a direct drive wheel on a shaky desk is the fastest way to hate sim racing. If I'm starting today, I either go for a solid wheel stand or I keep power levels reasonable. Brands like Next Level Racing offer wheel stands and cockpits that are very well designed for beginners. Some of them are foldable, which is perfect if you're short on space, and they're rigid enough to handle a reasonably powered direct drive, which is more than enough when you're starting out. And that alone can completely change the experience. A full cockpit is great, but it's not mandatory at the beginning. What really matters is stability. Even a good wheel stand with a properly secured chair is more than enough to learn and improve in good conditions. So if I had to summarize what I would do today as a beginner, I go for a reasonable and reliable direct drive bundle. I'd put the focus on pedals. I'd think about future upgrades without overspending up front. And most importantly, I'd drive a lot, because that's where the real progress happens. And don't forget to check the link below. It's always updated if a new deal drops. If this kind of video helps you make better choices, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next ones. See you in the next one.